welcome everyone to the NFL Prop Show here on RJ Bell's Dream Preview. I'm your host, Munaf Manji, here to get you guys ready for the final game of the NFL season for the Vince Lombardi Trophy happening on Sunday, of course, between the defending Super Bowl champions, the Kansas City Chiefs. They will be taking, of course, the Philadelphia Eagles. Packed show here with all of our props. I'll get to the rundown here momentarily. But joining me, of course, I've got both of my guys here with me, excited for the game. First off, shifting his focus slowly to those New York Knickerbockers, Steve Reider. Steve, what's going on, my man?
Yeah, man. Looking for a great week. Last week I was down with the flu. So any week that you don't have the flu is better than one that you do have with it. So whether we make money this week or not, I'm going to be very happy. I'm hoping we have a couple of drinks this upcoming weekend and celebrating some football. It's been a long year. Certainly a lot of ups and downs, but frankly, more ups for us, especially through this podcast. And we've been really fortunate. So it's been a long run and a positive one. Hopefully that everybody that has listened along has made some money along with us.
Yeah, 100%. It's been a fun season. It's been a profitable season. So hopefully we can close out the season strong here with our Super Bowl props here. I'm starting to feel a little bit of a tickle in my throat as well, a little frog in there. So hopefully something too serious. But nobody really cares about that. But they do care about this man, the hardest working man at pregame.com. The man himself, SleepyJ. Sleepy, what's going on, my man? How you doing?
I'm doing good. I know that the one cure in my household growing up for the flu was meatballs.
I knew, I would have put minus 5,000 odds he was going to say that. Um, uh, I'm sure everybody saw the picture that you tweeted out there. Those actually looked, I'm going to say, it looked actually really good. So if you're ever hungry, if your name is not Munaf or Steve, definitely tweet at Sleepy and he'll get you some of his famous meatballs that he cooks up for his family there. But gentlemen, down to the final game here of the NFL season. Should be a fun one. Super Bowl 59. What we'll do tonight, of course, we'll give you our player props. We'll give you one from each team that we like. We'll give you a game prop that we do like, touchdown scores, and of course, we'll give you a agreed upon player prop best bet. I think like we did last week, we'll do a same game parlay, one leg from each, myself, Steve, and Sleepy. And then we'll wrap it up with our official Super Bowl predictions as well. Think who we think is going to win the game this year to wrap up the NFL season. But definitely looking forward to it. A lot to get to here, guys. Let's dive right into it. Let's start here with our player props. We'll start here with the Kansas City Chiefs side of things here. Sleepy, I'll let you lead it off. Where are you taking us for player prop number one?
You know, I thought long and hard about which Kansas City player I like most to go ahead and target here. And believe it or not, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to play Kelce under 6.5 catches. I understand that he, always has big games when it comes to these type of games, and that's Mahomes' go-to guy. But Philadelphia is excellent against the tight end. And I think that even though Kelce's Kelce, that he could be used a little bit as a decoy to let Mahomes go ahead and get all the other players involved. Because if you start becoming one-dimensional and you start relying on just one player, and I get it, like Mahomes and Kelce have done this before, but this is a different team. This is a different team that they're playing against. And Philadelphia's just been very good against the tight end. I think Kelce could get 4, 5, 6 catches. I think they're going to try to go ahead and mix, a lot of the other players in here, but I don't think we're going to see the same old Kansas City offense where they need to go ahead and convert and the ball's going to Kelce, and you know that. Cooper DeJean probably matched up a lot on Kelce. He's a tough physical kid. He's going to give Kelce a lot of problems. So I think 6.5 catches is a lot. I mean, you need 7 to beat me. I don't think he's going to get there. I would see 4, 5, 6. That's where I'm at. So I'm going to play Kelce under 6.5 receptions.
Also, the thing that the Chiefs have a lot of other options as well, right? You have Hopkins, you have Hollywood Brown that's back. Xavier Worthy has been an integral part of this offense for the Chiefs here as well. And the backup tight ends, Noah Gray, of course, there for this Kansas City Chiefs team. So I think you're right. I think that the focus for the Eagles defensively should, hey, let's limit Travis Kelce. Let's make some of these other guys beat us here for the Kansas City Chiefs side of things, which kind of bodes well into the player prop I like for the Chiefs side of things. But before I get to that, I'm going to turn it over to Steve. Steve, if you have any thoughts on Travis Kelce, and then take us over to your Kansas City Chiefs prop. Up, you're on mute.
Sorry about that, gentlemen. Honestly, I might look to under his yardage total more so than the receptions, just because I don't know if he can get down the field. They're going to be looking for him, whether or not that the Philadelphia is going to make it a point to kind of shut that down. So I would lean to the under on receptions. But if I was going to target Travis Kelce props, I probably would go with the under receiving yards. But for my prop, it's kind of the same kind of concept here. You kind of get the old receiver from the Chiefs and look to fade him, and that's what I'm looking to do with DeAndre Hopkins. And frankly, this is an interesting one. I think they might actually get bought back, so you might want to wait on this because DeAndre Hopkins is a household name, and with a lot of the recreational bettors coming in here on the weekend, I think that they're going to look to bet somebody over that they're familiar with, like DeAndre Hopkins. How could he only get a catch and a half or just one catch in a game? And frankly, I think that's going to be the case. You've seen it so far this postseason. He's only had 3 targets, 1 reception for 11 yards. And that has so much to do with the fact that there's so many mouths to feed with the Chiefs. They get Hollywood Brown that's coming back from injury, and Xavier Worthy's been taking off. So I think there's been a lot of attention to these players that have more upside, if you will. You throw the ball to them and they have the speed to take it longer distance. And I think DeAndre Hopkins is losing that ability to separate. And certainly for the yak yards afterwards, I don't know if he has that upside. I'm not even sure how much he's going to play in the Super Bowl. So DeAndre Hopkins under 1.5 receptions, minus 140.
This also goes back to what we mentioned, right? The options that Patrick Mahomes has. And no, it was funny when I was looking back at the Super Bowl when these two teams played each other a few seasons ago. It just went over my head that Juju Smith-Schuster was actually on this roster for this Chiefs team. And had a big game in that game for the Chiefs, propelling them to that victory there over the Eagles there. So I just want Hopkins to get the ring. Being obviously a former Texan, rooting for the guy for sure. But at least for Steve's sake, hopefully it's not a big game for DeAndre Hopkins for the Chiefs side of things. All right, for my Chiefs player prop here, I'm gonna go a little bit not really off the page here, but something that really jumped out to me was Samaje Perine for the Kansas City Chiefs backfield. His receiving yards, the number is set at 7.5 in this matchup. And go back to the regular season, number one, played in all 17 games for the Kansas City Chiefs. He went over this projection in 14 of the 17 games for the Kansas City Chiefs. So when it comes down to those, third and short situations or those screen passes, they're getting Samaje Perine involved. And look, he's been able to really capitalize. I mean, the targets haven't really been there for them this season. He averaged, he had 35 total targets during the regular season, 28 receptions, but he turned those 28 receptions into 322 receiving yards. That's 18.9 yards per game for Samaje Perine. So if you're able to also find the longest reception to go over for him, I think it's a double whammy that, again, if he does get a target or two, and he makes a catch, it's more than likely that he's going to not only get over his yardage prop, but also his longest reception to go over as well. So we saw it last week. It was the final play of the game there against the Buffalo Bills, where he was able to get 17 on that catch from Patrick Mahomes here. But I do think that he'll be part of the offense here. I think he gets this done in one catch, over 7.5 receiving yards for Samaje Perine of the Kansas City Chiefs here, Sleepy.
Yeah, I don't mind this prop. I think so. I have a little bit of unfinished work yet still on the Super Bowl. And one of the things that I wanted to look at there was what has Andy Reid done when it comes to the Super Bowl? Not the playoffs. I want to know what he's done in the Super Bowl because he's been in this big game a lot of times. And I was curious how many players, he involved into the passing attack. Because you could go ahead and you can bet, players to go ahead and catch a pass. I think Kansas City was 7.5, and I think Philly was 5.5. And I'm just wondering if Andy Reid likes to spread the ball around. Look, this is one of the biggest moments of each of these players' lives, right? I mean, how many Super Bowls is Samaje Perine going to be in, after this game? There's a high probability that this is the last time he ever gets in this big game. Same thing goes with all the players from Philadelphia. I mean, you have Wilson, you have Kenneth Gainwell, you have Jahan Dotson. Like there are players that are on this team that have helped them, go ahead and win games all year long. And I just wonder if Sirianni is going to go ahead and dial up a play or two for for those guys or whatever. So I'm really looking at Philadelphia to go ahead and go over that number of 5.5 players to go ahead and catch a pass. And I think a lot of that has to do with, they could end up with a batted ball. You could end up with a fake punt. Dotson and Gainwell could certainly be in the passing attack. So I like that one over, but I do want to go ahead, like I said there, Munaf. I have a little unfinished business. I do want to see what Andy Reid has done because I might play the 7.5 over, and if that's the case, I have to add P Ryan in there, and that number is just too low. I mean, it just is, and I think you, myself, and Steve, we talked about um, some of these teams go to the lesser known players in these big games. There's always seems to be a hero, and P Ryan was pretty big in the playoffs. When he played for Cincinnati. So dude's on the team for a reason. Is he just going to stand there and hold the clipboard? I don't think so. I think he'll be part of the attack here. So I like your prop here. So yeah, I just want to touch on another prop that I liked it, which was the Philadelphia over 5.5 players to go ahead and catch a pass.
At least in the last three Super Bowls for the Chiefs, I quickly did the math here. Last year, 8 different Chiefs players had a reception. The year prior, or sorry, when they won against the Eagles, 7, and then the year prior where they lost to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they had 8 different players who had a reception there. So definitely could be onto something there. All right, so that is our player prop for the Chiefs side of things. Let's go over to the NFC champs, the Philadelphia Eagles here. Sleepy, lead us off. Or are you taking us for your Eagles prop?
All right, so this is a little bit tough because my touchdown scorer prop that I have here is going to be a Philadelphia Eagle, and our agreed upon player prop that we're going to give out for the podcast is a Philadelphia Eagle. So I don't have a player right now on Philadelphia that I have another prop on. Here's what I will say. I'm going to look at like the Jahan Dotson and the Wilson and the Kenneth Gainwell. I'm going to look at those guys and see what their numbers are and see if I think that that if they're going to get enough usage in this one. I will say this, I think Dallas Goedert has a chance to have a big game, and a lot of the reason why is just because Jalen Hurts. That's his security blanket. It's not AJ Brown, it's not Saquon Barkley, and it's not Devonta Smith. It's Dallas Goedert. Like that's the guy that he goes to when he needs to convert a third down. So I wouldn't be surprised if Goddard goes over his receptions in this game. I would look at that, but as of right now, my other player props for the Eagles are going to be spread out in the podcast. So I'm going to go ahead and give you guys maybe a Goddard over his receiving yards, receptions, something like in that area.
Well, you mentioned Goddard. I'll go and give that out because it was Goddard. So I'm glad you were at least looking in that direction. But it's everything that you mentioned, right? That Goddard is the security blanket there for Jalen Hurts. And, we take a look at the 3 playoff games thus far this season for Dallas Goddard: 47 receiving yards against the Green Bay Packers, 56 against the Rams, 85 last week on 7 receptions, 8 targets against the Washington Commanders. And we've talked about this a lot throughout the season. I've mentioned this, and you guys have as well. Kansas City Chiefs allowing the most receiving yards to the tight end position this season. So this number opened up at 43.5, I believe, got bet up immediately to 45.5. I still like it at the current number of 52.5. I would take this all the way up to 55.5 for Dallas Goedert here. So a lot of the people that I've also talked to, they do like his longest reception to go over, but I do think this will be a big Dallas Goedert game. So yeah, I'll take Dallas Goedert over 52.5 at the current number, like it all the way up to 55.5 in this game here. Steve, any thoughts on Goddard? And then take us over to your Eagles prop.
Yeah, Goddard's somebody I'm keeping an eye on. I have not played his overs yet, but that is definitely where I was leaning. I even had down over 4.5 receptions. So certainly something I would look into for sure. As far as the Eagles side of things, I'm actually going to fade one of the best players that'll be on the field this weekend, maybe the best player on the field. I'm going Barkley under 114 rushing yards. Frankly, he's been fantastic, but this number is just too big. I think Sleepy had mentioned previously that it's the second highest total for him so far this season. And frankly, it's Spagnuolo has 2 weeks to prepare. And when you have 2 weeks to prepare with this guy, they're going to figure out a way to shut down what you do the best and what you want to do on the football field, and that's to run the ball with Saquon Barkley. So I fully anticipate Barkley having some difficulties this week. I think he's going to get his yardage, don't get me wrong, but he can still have a great game and not have 115 rushing yards. They're great at stopping the explosive runs plays. So I did look at Barkley under 25.5 longest rush as well. But I do think Barkley's still going to have himself a good game. I just don't think it's going to be this massive ground game that so many of us are expecting. So give me under 114 and a half rushing yards for Saquon Barkley.
I'm thinking of the game plan for Spags, the defensive coordinator for the Chiefs, is going to be make Jalen Hurts beat us. Because we know the numbers about Jalen Hurts when he is pressured, when he is blitzed. He's one of the worst quarterbacks when it comes to that area. So, we've seen how dominant Saquon has been. I know we talked about Saquon as one of our player prop best bets earlier in the postseason, and that got us to the window. But I think like this number, at least for his longest rush attempt to go over, it's high for a reason. I understand it, but I do think that Steve Spagnuolo is going to do whatever it takes to really do his best to contain a guy like Saquon Barkley, not really let him go off here. So I think this will be the public play of the Super Bowl, him and Kelce, more than likely here, Steve. So a little contrarian. I do like the angle there for Saquon Barkley in this game here against the Chiefs, whose rush defense was one of the best during the regular season. I know they fell off a little bit in the postseason, but when you give Coach Spags and Coach Andy Reid 2 weeks to prepare for this team, I think they'll come up with something, at least to do their best to limit Saquon Barkley in this game here. So I'd be with you for sure on that. All right, so those are our player props for each team there. Let's get over to touchdown scores, gentlemen, and then we'll work our way from there. Sleepy, you want to lead us off with your touchdown score for this game?
Yeah, I have a feeling Steve's going to have the same one here. Jalen Hurts to score a touchdown at -110. It just makes a lot of sense. I don't want to say that it's automatic, but if Philadelphia gets to the 1 yard line, they are going to tush push. And there's multiple ways to get there. You can get there with a penalty, and we've seen that happen a lot with Philadelphia this year. Team gets flagged, they put the ball on the 1 yard line, and it's a tush push with Jalen Hurts. This is at -110, which says, hey, it's a 50-50 prop. But if you look at how many games this year Jalen Hurts has scored a touchdown, I believe it's 12 out of 18. That's not 50%. That's higher than 50%. So Jalen Hurts, I mean, he's had multiple games this year where he's had 3 or more, multiple games where he's had 2 or more. So this dude is a magnet for the end zone, and he has a lot of revenge in his mind. And I think Jalen Hurts is going to go out there, and I think he realizes that if he has a very good game, Philadelphia is going to win. He's going to find the end zone in this one. -110, it's fair, but at certain times of the year, I felt like this probably should have been like a -150, -160 prop because it almost was automatic. So I don't know if Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley are really all that much different when it comes to who's going to get into the end zone, but it's priced like Saquon's automatic. That's not necessarily the case. Jalen Hurts has a much better chance, I think, to score based on what can happen versus Saquon. So it's Jalen Hurts touchdown for me at -110. I like that one a lot.
Yeah, I mean, look, just a few seasons ago, 3 rushing touchdowns in that game against the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. 15 carries, 70 yards, 3 rushing touchdowns for Jalen Hurts. They did face off twice during the regular season in the past. He did have one game in there where he had 2 rushing touchdowns, but I mean, this almost feels like it is automatic at this point for one Jalen Hurts. Steve, touchdown score for this game. Who do you like?
I like Sleepy's. I also am on Jalen Hurts to score a touchdown. And frankly, it's tough for me to pivot to a different play. This is not a market that I typically dabble into. I think it's tough to find value, especially with this type of options. You're not betting the no on this side of it. So I think to find any value in the touchdown market is a blessing. And I do like this one. This is not even just me picking one. I think Jalen Hurts is a great opportunity, like Sleepy mentioned. He scored in 12 games so far this season, has 18 rushing touchdowns. One of the biggest concerns going into the conference game was how is his knee going to hold up? He scored 3 rushing touchdowns in that game. I think his knee is just fine. So I do think they're going to try to limit Saquon Barkley, and that might all open up opportunities for Jalen Hurts as well. So I also mentioned previously about the Chiefs being a blitzing type of defense. And frankly, if that's the case, is Hurts going to be able to get outside the pocket and maybe make a play on that respect too? So we'll see what ends up shaking out. But honestly, this is probably the only one that I actually like as far as the touchdown market goes is Jalen Hurts to score a touchdown.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, right? We talk about the tush push and the different ways that, again, Jalen Hurts, where we saw, I think it was like the first touchdown he had where he ran it for like 49 yards into the end zone. So is now with having 2 weeks off, getting even more rest for the knee there for Jalen Hurts. I think there's plenty of opportunities here for him to find the end zone. Who knows? We may even see a Philly special with a receiving touchdown for Jalen Hurts in this game. Who knows? I'm going to keep it chalky as well. I'll go to the Chiefs side of things. Travis Kelce at plus 140. And I mentioned this when we did the pod a couple weeks ago that anytime it comes down to the red zone area, Patrick Mahomes is going to look for his guy. And they faced off in 3 regular season matchups. He's had a touchdown in 2 of those 3 games against the Philadelphia Eagles. And again, for a guy that's priced at plus 140 right now, I really do like this number here. I thought this would be closer to a minus price. He did have a touchdown against the Texans, didn't have one against the Bills in that AFC Championship game. But I do like Kelce in this spot here against the Eagles. So I'll take him at plus 140 for Mahomes to find his guy in the end zone. All right, so those are our touchdown scores for this Super Bowl. Let's get over to our let's go to our same game parlay before we get to the agreed upon player prop best bet. What we'll do here, like we did in the last episode, we'll give you 1 leg each for our same game parlay. And hopefully we do get to the winning side of things for the same game parlay. Sleepy, you want to lead off with the first leg?
Yeah, so I'm going to go right back to what I was talking about when we were talking about how many players are going to catch a pass for the Philadelphia Eagles. The number is 5.5, but I think that there's a high probability that 6 guys do catch a pass in this game. And a lot of it is just due to my thinking is that these players only might get one opportunity to play in this game. And I get it, like it's the biggest game of the year, but nobody's looking at Jahan Dotson. Nobody's looking at Johnny Wilson. Nobody's looking at Calcaterra or Kenneth Gainwell or, a punter throwing a pass or a pass getting batted in the air and Jalen Hurts. I think there's a chance, believe it or not, that Philadelphia runs some type of a version of a Philly special in this game. So that would open up the quarterback as well. So I think that there are plenty of opportunities for more than 5.5 players on the Eagles to go ahead and catch a pass in this game. And I get it. Like, it's a very concentrated attack to get to this game, but this is the game where you really want to be deceptive. You don't want to do that necessarily, trying to get to the Super Bowl. You need to just, keep it tight and use your best players. But, this is a time where the other team doesn't have much game tape on what Jahan Dotson could do or what Kenneth Gainwell or Calcaterra can do, where they're going to be. They could just look like decoys out there on the football field. So I think Philadelphia is going to mix it up. Kellen Moore has a pretty expansive playbook. So I'm going to play Philadelphia over 5.5 players to catch a pass.
Love it. All right, Steve, take us over to your second leg of our same game parlay. What do you like?
Yeah, I'm gonna go back to something that we actually just mentioned earlier, Munaf. You had mentioned go Goddard's over receiving yards. For the SGP, I think I decided to go over with Goddard's receptions here, laying a little bit extra big. But frankly, I think if you're looking to take away the big play, which I think that the Chiefs will look to do with AJ Brown, Devontae Smith in the passing game, and certain Saquon Barkley, you can only do so many things schematically against the Eagles, and frankly, something's going to be left open, and I think that's Dallas Goedert in the middle of the field. I think that he's going to be, early and often kind of look when things break down. Who are you going to throw it to? You're going to throw it to the guy that's over in the middle of the field. That's the biggest guy on the field. So, for me, I think that we should clear this number. And frankly, when you're rolling into a same game parlay, let's have some fun with it.
Love it. All right, the third leg for the same game parlay, I am going to throw in. There's 2 that I like here. I think we'll go with the one with a little bit of less vig on it. That's total rushing touchdowns over 2.5. Honestly, this could be a game prop where the Eagles could cover this by themselves because we know what Jalen Hurts can do. We know what Saquon can do as well. Both these quarterbacks are also capable of rushing with the football, right? We've seen Mahomes plenty of time, especially in the postseason, scramble with the football. Not only that, but also get into the end zone. We just talked at volumes about Jalen Hurts and his rushing abilities. And then, let's say both those quarterbacks do find the end zone. You have Saquon, you have Isaiah Pacheco. Kareem Hunt has had a fantastic postseason as well for the Kansas City Chiefs there. And I think it's a good opportunity here for at least 3 rushing touchdowns in this game. And again, it could be all by one player like it was last time these two teams matched up in Jalen Hurts there. So I'll go total rushing touchdowns in this game over 2.5 for the third leg of our same game parlay there. So just a recap, we'll go Philadelphia Eagles total receiving players over 5.5. We'll go Dallas Goddard. You said reception, Steve, or yardage?
Receptions.
Receptions over 4.5 for Dallas Goddard. And then I will throw in total rushing touchdowns over 2.5 in this game here for our same game parlay. All right, before we move it along here, before we get to our player prop best bet and then official Super Bowl predictions, pregame.com. Again, look, I know the football season is winding down here, but we still have hoops going on. We still have the golf season that just started. Obviously, hockey is still going on. March Madness right around the corner. Baseball season is going to be here before we know it. So right now is a great time. Get over there to pregame.com, Sleepy, and let our listeners know what can they take advantage of right now on pregame.com.
All right, well, we know the Super Bowl's here, but as soon as this game wraps up, it's nothing but basketball. I mean, it's hot and heavy all the way towards March Madness, and then we're making the final push in basketball when we get to the NBA Finals. But right now at pregame.com, you guys could save $10 off anything there at pregame.com when it comes to a basketball package, and simply enter code NFL10. So NFL10, that'll save you money on basketball. But like I said, once the Super Bowl's over, everybody's happy that football's over and done and gone and out of the way, and it just completely shift your focus to the NBA. And even though a lot of people drop off after football ends, there are still a lot of people out there that like to bet basketball, and this is a good time of the year to go ahead and try to do that. So enter that code NFL10 at pregame.com.
There we go. Get over there, pregame.com. Use that promo code NFL10. All right, gentlemen, let's get over to our player prop best bet for the Super Bowl. Then we'll look over to the Philadelphia Eagles side of things, and we are going to take a look at the receiver for the Philadelphia Eagles. That is going to be one DeVonta Smith to go over on his receiving yards in this matchup, currently over on DraftKings. You get this number at 51.5 here. Sleepy, I'm going to toss this one to you to lead us off with DeVonta Smith in this matchup against the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, so we're looking at DeVonta Smith to go over his receiving yards, 50.5 you can find out there. I'm surprised that the market hasn't moved up quicker on him. I thought that they would, but they haven't yet. And I just wonder if it's just because it's, so many people are putting their money on Saquon Barkley, so many people are putting their money on Jalen Hurts or Travis Kelce, and they're forgetting about DeVonta Smith. But you cannot forget about this dude. If Kansas City decides to blitz, he's easily going over this number. If you look at what he's done against blitzing teams this year, he's absolutely gone off. He's been very good against blitzing teams, and you would think that Kansas City is going to put most of their attention on Saquon Barkley and A.J. Brown because those are the two best players that Philadelphia has. And when teams do that, Philadelphia has no problem pivoting to DeVonta Smith. If they try to line up man coverage on him, he's going to have a really big game. I think this number is just too low. I really do. I think this number should be closer to 58.5. That would be the number where I decide to go ahead and stop and bet it. But 50.5 just feels too low for me. But I think he's in line for a big game. Philadelphia is going to use some deception in this one, and he's very hard to go ahead and guard one-on-one. So he's going to find his favorable matchups. Philly will not leave him out of the game plan. I know he's been a little bit quiet in the playoffs, and that's kind of why I really like this one, because they'll lull you to sleep and then they'll hit you with this dude. And I wouldn't be surprised if he has one big catch in this game that almost can cover this yardage in one play, because he always finds some way somehow to go ahead and have one big catch. Not to mention the other production, but just don't be surprised if we end up with 30, 40 yards from DeVonta on one catch, because that dude's been known to go ahead and have big catches. So yeah, I'm all over that one.
Yeah, two games or two matchups, let's say, in the regular season when the Chiefs and Eagles have matched up back in 2021, 7 receptions, 10 targets, 122 yards in that game for DeVonta Smith, a long reception of 37 in that game. The second matchup after these two teams played in the Super Bowl was another big game for DeVonta Smith, 6 receptions, 8 targets, for 99 yards in that game, and he had a long reception that game for 41. And in the Super Bowl, he had a 100-yard receiving game for the Eagles, which also had a 40-plus long reception in that game here. So I co-signed this 100%. I also would bet the longest reception to go over for Devontae Smith. Like Sleepy mentioned, he could probably get this, who knows, get this done for us in one catch possibly here. But love this here, Devontae Smith. Steve, what else we got for Devontae Smith as our player prop best bet?
I think one of the reasons why I like this is just because of how I think the game's going to play out. I'm not sure if Saquon Barkley is going to get the yards that I think a lot of people are expecting. I think they're going to be forced to throw the ball. I think Jalen Hurts looked great last 2 weeks ago against Washington. It was his best game, and I think that he's going to be able to pass the ball a little bit more effectively than he was post concussion. So I think that is certainly Devontae Smith should be the beneficiary of it.
There we go. Player prop best bet for Super Bowl 59. Devontae Smith over 51 and a half receiving yards in this matchup. All right, so that is all the prop bets, touchdown scores for Super Bowl 59. Hopefully, we did find some profitable angles, some winning prop bets for you guys. We'll wrap it up here with our official Super Bowl predictions. Who do we think is going to win? And hoisting the Vince Lombardi trophy for this season. Sleepy, I'll let you lead off. Who's winning the big game?
The Eagles, 33-18. That's my final score prediction. I think the Eagles are going to win by double digits and surprise a lot of people. Look, when I look at Kansas City, I see greatness. Don't get me wrong. The team's a dynasty. Andy Reid's a monster. Patrick Mahomes is a monster. But I honestly think that everybody on this podcast and all the other guys that I worked with throughout the entire year kind of were waiting for the Kansas City Chiefs to at least fall back down a little bit, to probably not three-peat and win the Super Bowl, because a lot of people felt like they had a lesser type of team than the teams that they won it with. Um, Pacheco's not healthy. Travis Kelce's getting a year older. And I know Mahomes have done it with, every wide receiver that they've ever put on the team, but they don't seem like really outside of Xavier Worthy that they can trust Hollywood Brown or they could trust DeAndre Hopkins. So I just wonder if Kansas City's, as good as they have been in the past. But when I look at the Chiefs and I look at their schedule, the only team on there that I see that looks anything remotely close to the Eagles, you got to go all the way back to week 1 when Kansas City beat Baltimore. Well, that's a tough game. That's the season opener in Kansas City. I'm not surprised that Kansas City won that game. I think they were favored by 3 points in that game. But I think that they've just had so many games against bad quarterbacks and bad teams that it's just been a constant drop down in class. And when they saw Buffalo, they lost. And I get it, like they beat Buffalo in the playoffs. Again, you're playing in Arrowhead. I actually think this game favors Philadelphia when you're looking at a home field advantage. Philly plays really good at home, don't get me wrong, but Kansas City is really tough to beat in Arrowhead. The fact that they're not going to be in Arrowhead, I think that's going to be a little bit of a problem here. Philadelphia's ready. Jalen Hurts has revenge. Um, I don't know. I think this is Philly's time. They're too good on offense, too good on defense. I like Philly. I think they win the game by double digits. Surprise the shit out of everybody. I'm taking Philly.
There we go. 33-18 is the call by one Sleepy J for the Eagles to hoist the trophy. Steve, who's winning it, my man?
Man, I don't want to bring him down here, but Sleepy's wrong. The Chiefs are going to win 27-24. You heard it here first. I do think it's going to be a close game, but I am on the Chiefs. And frankly, it comes down to just really the best quarterback in the league. You have the best coach in the league. You have the most experience. I mean, these are two people that, with additional time to prepare, have been absolutely fantastic throughout their history together. I think there's something to be said for this experience going into this game, and certainly some Eagles have been here before, but not in the same way that this iteration of the Chiefs has been. And Sleepy brought up some good points. Everybody was waiting for them to kind of fall down. They weren't as good as their record suggests, and the stats said something completely different. But when you take a look at what the Patriots dynasty did, people said the same thing. And somehow Brady continuously won. And because they had the best quarterback and they had the best coach in the league and they had the experience, That in the games like this, it matters the most. And frankly, I think that's going to be the case. Steve Spagnuolo, their defensive coordinator, has been there. I mean, he's tasked with an arduous task of slowing down Saquon Barkley, the best running back in the league. But do you, as an Eagle fan or an Eagle backer, do you honestly trust Jalen Hurts to carry this team if it comes down to that? I'm not saying that they're going to be able to shut Barkley down continuously, but have you seen enough from Jalen Hurts in his one game where he looked good post concussion against Washington, where Washington really was playing with house money, and I think most people thought that they were lucky to be in that position. So I think that when you look at the totality of things and you look schematically at what can be done and kind of the flexibility that the defense has for KC, I think they're going to be able to play enough zone coverage, even when they do blitz on the back end, to kind of limit what Hurts does like to do. And frankly, offensively for Mahomes, I mean, he's getting the receivers playing their best football right now than they have all season. Hollywood Brown is back and healthy. I think there's some continuity building there, and certainly Xavier Worthy. This is a rookie quarter receiver that came out with all the tools and tangibles to be great, and he's starting to see that and starting to pay dividends. Taking him slow throughout the season. Yeah, I feel bad, on the last podcast coming out and just saying that Sleepy's wrong, but I'm pretty confident. But Munaf, why don't you split this tie? Who's winning the Super Bowl?
God, you guys just putting me as the tiebreaker here. I've gone back and forth. I've gone back and forth a lot. I just feel like this is the time for the Eagles to defeat the Kansas City Chiefs. I really do think that it comes down to the defensive side of the football for the Eagles. Well, I think they're going to be able to generate enough pressure against the offensive line of the Kansas City Chiefs. Jalen Carter has been an absolute monster for this Eagles front line. Quinion Mitchell hasn't been talked about a lot in his rookie season, right? He's done a fantastic job of coverage as well. And again, we're not expecting Saquon, at least from a prop perspective, to have a big game. But we'll be surprised after the end of the day. We looked at it in the Eagles one. He had 150 rushing yards and another 30, 40 receiving yards for the Eagles. I don't think we would be, but I just feel like this team is primed right now. I think Jalen Hurts, this is the opportunity right now for him. He has the revenge on his mind. He's talked about this a lot. Now it's time for him to go out and prove it. And I think that if the Eagles do win the battle in the trenches, I think that's what's going to decide this game. And I think that advantage is to the Eagles side of things because they have a fantastic defense as well. So I'm going to go with the Eagles here. I'm going to go 27-26 as the final score here. Eagles do get the job done this season. But hey, if I come back, or if me and Sleepy come back betting against God himself and Patrick Mahomes, then I will just wear that clown face mask and take the pie to the face there. But hopefully it's a fun competitive game. Hopefully it does come down to the wire there. Hopefully it's an exciting game. But more importantly, gentlemen, hopefully we did find some winners here on this episode for Super Bowl 59 for our props. And that is going to do it here for this edition, the final episode of the NFL season. This was our first season doing this pod. It was a lot of fun. We had a great run as far as our player prop best bets went. Of course, finding winners throughout the season. I could probably maybe count on a couple of fingers where we had a losing week overall as a group here, but it's just been absolutely fantastic this season with both Sleepy and Steve. But Sleepy, anything else you want to mention to our loyal listeners before we do get out of here?
Yeah, big thanks. I think that has to be said. We've had a lot of support this entire year, and starting up a new podcast for anybody that podcast, it's difficult, and it's difficult to go ahead and keep your audience in this space because when you lose, people go away. It just is what it is. Oh, hey, Sleepy, you stink, or Manaf, you stink, Steve. You don't know what you're talking about. But we've shown on this podcast that we don't stink, that we do know what we're talking about, and that we could show up to work each and every week, for 18 weeks, all the playoffs, and go ahead and provide, what we do for a living, which is we work on football games all year long, and we try to give out the best stuff. And big thanks to everybody for going ahead, hanging in there, and listening to us. I think we set a nice little a nice little example of what a props podcast could look like and what a successful podcast can look like when it comes to, just betting player props. We didn't get too crazy. We kept it really dialed in, and I think that the listeners really enjoyed that. We didn't confuse them with too much, which sometimes you can do that. But yeah, it was a lot of fun working with you guys this year. I really enjoyed it. So thanks to both of you guys as well.
Yeah, 100%. I connect to what Sleepy mentioned to the listeners of this podcast. Again, we wouldn't be able to do it without them listening to us and giving us all the feedback and the tweets that we got throughout the season there. Steve, any parting words?
No, it's been a blast. Like Sleepy and you certainly have mentioned, it's no, it's been a great run, profitable run. To do it with you two folks, professionals that are obviously in this space, because you're making money and because you want to help people along the way. I mean, you're in it for the right reasons, and frankly, to associate myself with you folks is an honor. So I appreciate you. Let me come along, and certainly to all the listeners, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to us throughout the season, and best of luck this weekend.
Yes, sir. Echoing everything Steve said there as well. So enjoy the game this weekend. Don't ever overextend yourself. I know everybody's going to be having their parties and watching with friends and family. So you want to enjoy this time, enjoy the moment, because it'll be the final game of the football NFL season, actually, until we get to August with the Hall of Fame game. So enjoy the Super Bowl and appreciate again all the loyal listeners. And we'll talk to you guys down the road.